We hear a lot about safety nets for the poor and the homeless. Well, there is no safety net for the kids we're going to meet today. The foster care system says goodbye to them when they reach 18. What happens to them then? I'll tell you. Some of them, too many, feel lost, turn to drugs, prostitution, and wind up in jail. You're going to hear their very human stories, and you're going to find out about one volunteer group that exists that turns despair to hope. It's a story you need to know. I'm Debra. Come with me now to find out about a new life, Vita Nova. Hello, I'm Debra Tornabin, and you're about to embark on a journey through the lives of two young people who are having an opportunity to start new lives. It hasn't been easy for them. First, let me introduce my guest. Jeff DeMario is the Chief Executive Officer of Vita Nova, a volunteer organization to help young people who age out of the foster care system and have no place to go at 18 years old. No one understands the plight of an abused child living in and then tossed out of the foster care system better than someone who's been through it. Today, to share their experiences with us is Anne Flynn, who is 20 years old, and Otto Phillips, who is 21. Both of them live at Vita Nova after being turned out of the foster care system and tossed into the world alone with no safety net. Thank you so much, all of you, for being with me today. Jeff, I want to really start with you. 30,000 children will age out of the foster care system today. It's hard to imagine 30,000 young people out there in the world on their own. Vita Nova is doing something about that. Tell me a little bit about Vita Nova.
Absolutely. I think what we have to do is begin where there's the second abuse that the youth will see. Many people know that youth leave the foster care system at 18 in the state of Florida. They enter the system through a knock at a door where there may have been some impropriety in the home. So the youth are asked to leave their home and go live in a foster setting, whether that be a guardianship, a kinship, a foster home, what have you. It's foster care. And what many people don't know is that there's a second knock at a door, and it's the bedroom door, and it's the door on the 18th birthday where youth are asked to leave. And that's the harder knock, because now the youth on average stays in foster care for about 5 years. And then they're asked to be uprooted again from a home where they're established in school. Maybe they have a part-time job. Maybe they're familiar with the pets, the smells, the surroundings, all the stuff that we would call home. And then they're asked to go do it all again on their own. And so that's where we find that our mission works best. That's where we find that Vita Nova can insert themselves and ourselves into helping. And so Vita Nova Village, our apartment complex, was really born out of that idea of recreating that home environment. It became very difficult because when we first started to talk to young people about, you're going to live at Vita Nova and we're going to create a home-like environment, their first reaction was, like, I don't want that home again. My reaction about the word home is Christmas and the smell of turkey over Thanksgiving and all that great stuff we think about. But when we were talking about home at Vita Nova initially, it really wasn't resonating with our young people. So we knew that's where the work needed to start. So Vita Nova really exists to recreate those structures that should be in a young person's life so that they can be independent, and also give them an opportunity to fail safely so that they can get back up and try it again.
So it's a safety net for these young people.
Most definitely.
And what is it like for them living there? Describe their housing.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to hear from Otto and Anne today, because the day-to-day for me is different than the day-to-day for them. But in my mind's eye, how I envision Vita Nova working is that there's a discussion about wanting this support and guidance. And we typically handle that in an interview format where we meet the young person from wherever they're coming from. Hopefully we meet them before there's a crisis. It's before the 18th birthday or before they're homeless. And if we get that opportunity, what happens is we talk about the myriad of services we have to offer a young person in regards to finishing educational goals, saving money, or creating a job so we can have money. We also talk about the different supports that we can provide clinically. It's really hard to go through the foster care system and not have some kind of a scar, not have some kind of a memory that haunts you. And I think until we address those things, that baggage doesn't go away. It stays on the front door of the young people's minds until we can address it and then move on. Our young people can disguise that really well, but I think that's a very big service that we try to provide to unpack some of that, make sense of it, so we can move on.
So you want to make them living in foster care part of their life, but not their life story.
Absolutely. It doesn't have to be a disability. I mean, the fact that, I mean, there are stories of young people from foster care where they didn't have the horrible experience. And I think what we try to do at Vita Nova is make sure that that's just a part of your life's chapter that, that's past. And now we're moving on to the next chapter called independence.
Right. Well, 18 is very young, and I'm sure they went through their whole life with some rules, and now they're 18, so they feel like they're free, and they come to you with this newfound freedom. How do you establish rules at Vita Nova, and what do you expect from the children who live with you, the young people who live with you?
Absolutely. I think one of the most important thing to understand about the rules or expectations we set at Vita Nova is that we explain why to the young person they exist. So let's take an example of something like curfew. And we'll say a word like curfew to an 18-year-old, and instantly I'll get that glossed over look. I'm going to rebel against this at some point. My birthday's coming up, I'm not listening to you. And that's fine. But if we package it in the way of why, then it makes sense to them and for us. And the why for us is always something related to safety. If I have you in the house at 12 o'clock, then I know where you are and I know where you're safe. Statistically, in the areas of West Palm Beach, the crime rate goes up 50%, 75% after 1 o'clock in the morning, 2 o'clock in the morning. And so if we can bring people in and our young people can be aware of that, then they'll be more apt to follow that on their own, police it on their own, so that I don't have to, jump out of a bush and say, gotcha. Right. The idea is that they understand why. The same thing right down the line for drug use, sexual health, all these issues that we tackle that we would consider rules. Group attendance, we would want to explain why we want the young person to understand that rule exists so that they can follow it. Drug use, as you know, with teen population is a very big issue for us. 40% of the young people that leave foster care use drugs without guidance and support that they need. And so we try to combat that at Vita Nova by giving them education about how drugs are bad, of course, how they bring you off center, that you can't learn very specific things that you need to learn. At a very young age.
Also, a lot of these young people have been put on pharmaceutical prescription drugs for their anxiety and their anger, and mixing that with recreational, so to speak, drugs is a complete disaster. So
absolutely, it's a great point. 85% of our young people leaving foster care are leaving with prescription or a diagnosis, if you will. What we're able to do with our clinical department at Vita Nova is really explore where that came from. What does that mean to the young person? Does it explain away certain things? And then have the young person have more active decision making in their prescription medication.
Well, Anne, I have a daughter who's 22 and I have a son who's 24, so I can relate to where you are in your life and what you're experiencing at this time, because I'm kind of going through it with my own daughter. But let's talk a little bit about your story. When did you enter the foster care system, and what was that experience like for you?
I was 16 years old, and it was not as hard as a lot of experiences I've heard about are, but it was hard in my own kind of way. My mom died, so it was in temporary guardianship that I was placed into.
And then at 18, you had to find another way of living again. So from 16, you sort of got a little more comfortable, and then at 18, you were kind of ripped out of that comfort zone again. So what happened when you were 18?
I had that newfound freedom, and I went out and just thought that the world was mine. And it was hard. It was very difficult. The world is not an easy place like I thought it was supposed to be. And I hit bottom a few different times. And that is when I came into contact with Vita Nova.
Describe that time. When you say you hit bottom, what did that mean to you?
Being homeless, having nowhere to go, having no one to call, having nowhere safe to be.
So losing your mother also caused you to lose that whole safety net and that feeling of someone that you can count on.
Right.
And how does Vita Nova fill that void for you?
Vita Nova gives me a safe place to call home. It gives me people to be around that actually care about what happens to me, and they want to see that I do make a successful, person out of myself.
So now you're living in a wonderful place, in a safe haven for you. And what are you doing today? Are you in school or are you working?
I work full-time, and I'm in the process of getting back into school. I want to be a cosmetologist, so that is where I plan to head.
Good, so you have a goal. That's wonderful. And you had said that at 15 your mom had passed away. Tell me about that time of your life. Are you an only child?
I am not an only child. I have two brothers, but one was older and one was younger, and there are different fathers. She died of cancer, and that same week, my birth father signed his rights away. So that was why I was placed into a temporary guardianship.
And what was that like at 15 years old? That's the time when a young girl really needs her mom the most.
Yeah, it was hard, and I think that's why I rebelled as much as I did, because I stopped focusing. I didn't know how to deal. And it's because that's a very hard thing to deal with, know how to deal with it, and I didn't. So I took it out on everybody else.
Well, mostly on yourself, I would say. Everybody else just kind of was there. What things were you doing? I mean, you were out just partying and being...
Yeah, I took the party atmosphere to an extreme. I completely just didn't acknowledge school and took that atmosphere to the highest level.
And were you seeing any counseling at that time?
I was not. I denied it all.
You denied it. And when you went to Vita Nova, did they help you with that? Did they give you counseling?
They did.
And how has that changed your life?
It's actually pretty amazing, the help, you know, that it gives me on a daily basis, because I never wanted it before, and now I'm like using it like every other day.
Right, so you have a place to put
Yeah.
all of that. And what would you say to people who, you know, looking back now, do you wish you had that help when you were 15?
Well, I can't ever regret my past and my decisions that I make, but it might have made a difference in, you know, the routes and the decisions that I made if I would have, you know, had counseling then.
And your siblings, where are they now?
My younger brother is with his father, and my older brother has a family of his own.
And do you see them at all? Are you in contact with any family members at all?
Not really.
No. And what about grandparents, aunts, uncles?
I have grandparents, I have uncles, I have aunts, but there is no relationship.
So when you were growing up, did you have a best friend? Did you have someone that you could really kind of share all the things that you were going through with?
I did.
You did? And do you see her still today?
I don't.
You don't?
Our paths went in different directions.
So living at Vita Nova has really, I would imagine, meant a lot for you. How does it feel when you leave the house in the morning knowing that you have a place to come home to at night?
It's comforting. It makes me feel good about going throughout my day and knowing that I have, you know, a house to come home to at the end of the day, and I have all the things that I need, and I can sleep in a bed and not on a couch or somewhere else for that matter.
And do you have a roommate? Do you live with someone else?
Yes, I have two roommates.
And how is that working out, since you were used to being the only girl? How does that work for you?
It's different. It's definitely different, but it's, you know.
Well, you got that sharing and caring and that whole family feeling there, so.
It's definitely sharing and caring.
And is there mutual respect for each other living there?
Yeah, for the most part.
Good. So for your future, what do you see in your future?
Well, it's hard to say where I see myself in my future, because there's a lot of different things that I want to accomplish. So actually pinpointing one thing, I think I might sell myself short if I just say I'm going to be here.
Right. And what scares you the most about being on your own? What fears do you have?
The independence, you know, having to do it by myself is what always scared me before, but I'm not afraid of that anymore. So being independent is what I want to be, and that's where I'm heading.
That's good. Most young people your age don't know how to do their laundry, do not know how to cook for themselves, do not know how to live on their own. So your fears of being on your own are very normal. But not having that safety net is what makes it so difficult. And I would imagine that having Vita Nova as that safety net for you is helpful. So I think that's really a wonderful thing that you have a home, you know, a place to call home.
Right.
And Otto, thank you for being here today. I know you have an exam that you were going to be taking at school that you had to reschedule to be with us, so I do appreciate your time. Tell us a little bit about your story. When did you enter the foster care system?
Well, I first entered the foster care system at the age of 5 when the state took me away from my mother because some things were happening in the house that shouldn't have been done, like my sisters being abused by my mom's boyfriend, drugs, alcohol, all this stuff was in the house. And it wasn't a safe place for me and my sisters, my two sisters. And so they took us out and placed me with my grandmother, who raised me basically until I was 15 when she passed away.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, it was a tough time. And then I re-entered the foster care system. I lived in a group home, and I found a foster family. But it was a two-female couple, and at that time, the state did not allow them to adopt. And when their licensing, foster care license expired, I had to go to another group home, which I lived for 2.5 years until I aged out of foster care.
And your sisters, did they go with you?
My sisters were with me. My one sister came with me, lived with my grandma until she passed away. My other sister had gotten into the system because she didn't want to live with my grandmother anymore. So she was gone while we were still living with my grandmother.
And were you the oldest or the youngest?
No, I have 4 sisters actually, 2 older and 2 younger, but only the 2 sisters with me growing up.
And did you feel responsible for them?
I did. I remember growing up, my older sister would get picked on at school. I would get on the bus and I would be the one handling her little confrontations with other kids because she was my sister and I wasn't going to let anybody mess with my sister.
Right, right. And then you felt that attachment to someone, so that helped you to feel that sense of family. When did you go to Vita Nova? What happened to you when you were 18 years old? Tell me about that a little bit.
When I first turned 18, I moved out on my own. I didn't get into any program, Vita Nova, Turtle Nest, none of those programs. I went and lived with my foster family that I had previously lived with before I got back into the group home. I lived there for about three months, and then I decided it was time for me to move out on my own. And I went to school. I was doing good for about 1.5 years, getting good grades, going to school, working. I had 2 jobs. I worked at Publix, and I worked at the YMCA in Boca Raton. And then it just started falling apart for me. School was getting tougher, so I just stopped going. I just was going to work and doing stuff that I shouldn't have been doing, like partying and stuff.
You were carrying a lot of baggage with you wherever you went. Yeah. And you took that baggage, and where did you take it? You took it to
Vita Nova when I was 21. I told myself I needed help and that I needed to get back in school.
And what did they do for you to really turn your life around?
The main thing that helped me at Vita Nova was the structure. Having a place to live and not have to worry about it. And then having somebody to go talk to if I needed help, if I was struggling with something. They helped me get back into school, and I have my associate's degree now, and I'm continuing my education.
And what are you studying?
Human Services, Youth Development. I want to work with special needs children because I've been doing it for the past couple of years.
Good for you.
So it's something I want to do.
Good for you. So you have a solid foundation in your life now. And what are you looking for your future? What do you look ahead to see? Look ahead 10 years. Where do you see yourself?
Well, there's a lot of things I want to do. I want to run a facility, an inclusion-based facility with special needs children. That's something that I really would like to do because it brings me so much joy to work with them.
What do you think is the most difficult part of being a foster child?
The most difficult part is not having a true family, not having someone you can call mom, not having someone you can call dad, somebody that you can go to with your problems if you have any in school or anything. Right.
Well, I would imagine that's difficult, but it's nice to know that you do have a pseudo-family, I would say, at Vita Nova. I've seen a lot of the work that they've done, and it does feel like a family setting there. If you could speak to parents, birth parents and foster parents, what would you say to them?
The role as a parent is to be there for them when they need help with anything, to love them, care for them, and let them have no worries until they reach the age where they have to worry.
Get them prepared for that.
Get them prepared for that time, yes.
Well, I think you're prepared. I think you're doing very well, and I wish you luck in your studies. I think you're doing a great job with that. And for you, for young people, what do you say to young people who are going through that change in their life where they're entering adulthood? What advice do you have for them?
Well, there's a lot of different things that can be said. I know when I was young and people were giving me advice, I didn't want to hear it. So I would just tell them that I believed in them.
That you believed in them. And who believes in Anne right now? Who do you have that really believes in you?
Well, today I actually can say I believe in myself, but I do have a lot of different supports now that I'm allowing into my life that.
Well, that's good. Believing in yourself is the key. Because if you can believe in yourself, you can do anything. And Jeff, you have a lot of work ahead of you. Your services to the community are wonderful. How many young people are living with you currently at Vita Nova?
We have capacity for 28. Currently, we're in the mid-20s right now, so we do have some openings right now. We service 18 to 25-year-olds at the facility, male and female. And so it's just a great catchment that we can throw out there to help invite people to the program and get to know us, and we can get to know and help them.
And what are some of the biggest challenges you have right now?
I think some of the biggest challenges that we have right now is kind of understanding that programs like these are really great and they're really substantial, but they're not the eternal fix. The eternal fix to the problem is permanency for young people. And it's a message that we all have to get behind in Florida and the nation, that parents do the jobs. Healthy parents and safe parents can do the jobs a lot better. And that can look like guardianship, kinship guardianship, that can look like adoptive parents or biological parents. That kind of guardianship provides the day-to-day structure and the day-to-day love that anyone needs. Forget about foster care kids. And so, although Vita Nova, I think, is doing a fabulous job providing a permanent supportive housing environment with staff and other young people that can support each other, it's not the eternal fix. The eternal fix really is the family.
And struggles. What is your greatest challenge today, Otto, that you have being out in the world on your own?
The greatest challenge is to stay focused on what I want my future to be.
Right, to be in line with what your goals are.
Yes, to stay on that track that I want to be on, to reach my goals.
And are you doing that now?
Yes, I am.
Why did you decide to take the route that you took? What made you interested in what you're studying today? You've been working with handicapped children for a little while. How did you get involved in that?
Well, it first started when I first aged out at 18. I lived next to the YMCA in Boca, and I used to go there and play basketball every day. Was there all the time, and then one of the staff members there asked me if I wanted to coach a younger kids basketball team, and I was like, of course, why not? So I started coaching, and then they offered me a summer job. So I was like, yeah, I'll do that too. So I worked over the summer. It was awesome. I loved it. But it was with the mainstream kids, not the special needs. I wasn't with them yet. So I was doing the sports camp, and then when the summer ended, they offered me a after-school programming job. So I did that, and then there was a position opening in the special needs program. So I jumped on it, and I've been there for 3 years now.
And so you're making a difference in some young people's lives.
I try.
And what does that mean to you? How does that feel for you when you see that you're changing some young person's life, their day?
It makes me feel good. I go home happy every day, tired, but I go home happy because I know that that kid had a good day today because of me.
Let's talk about your future a little bit. Do you see yourself staying at Vita Nova? What are your plans for your future?
Well, my plans right now, as of today, is to move from Vita Nova around August at the end of summer. I would already have finished my schooling, and I would have saved up enough money to move out on my own and start my life over again.
And do you feel like you'll be ready for that?
Yes, I do.
Does anyone work at the Thrift Store? Have you guys worked at the Thrift Store? Tell us a little bit about that.
The Thrift Store for us is a great place to help our young people learn how to work. It's one of those practice environments where a young person can fail and do all the things they think is right in a work environment they would ordinarily get fired for. And so what we've done is set up an environment where they can do those things and then learn to not do them in the real workplace. You know, I think it's a varying opinion based on who you talk to about the Thrift Store, but for the most part, it's that environment where young people can go and get items for themselves, learn how to work, maybe help practice the skill that they don't have in the workplace.
To be on time, right? To dress the right way. I mean, I know a lot of times we think that there's no clock, you know, especially when you're living on your own. You just don't have that sense of time. But I think the Thrift Store is a great idea to help get them into the workforce and also to help raise money for Vita Nova. So
absolutely, we urge everybody to shop at the Vita Nova Thrift Store. There's a wonderful staff there, and our young people work there as well. You can make donations or just pick up new items for yourself. So.
And where is that?
It's in Palm Springs, right off Congress Avenue and 10th Avenue.
You have an event coming up. Tell us a little bit about that.
Absolutely. It's our annual gala, and we're really excited to have our gala because it's an opportunity for community members to come in and learn more about Vita Nova, our services, meet our young people, and just become aware of the social issue.
And let me ask you, Jeff, 18 years old to age out of foster care, How do you feel about that age? I mean, 18 to me, like I said, I have a 24-year-old and a 22-year-old. I don't know that they're quite ready to be on their own, and they're 24 and 22. So 18 years old, how do you feel about that age for young people to be on their own?
I think it's really tough. The issue with being 18 has very little to do with aging out of foster care and struggling as an independent adult. I think anybody would struggle at that age. People from foster care have very little supports to do it successfully. So I think it's ludicrous to think that young people can exit foster care, live on their own, and get all the support that they need and be successful on their own. It just doesn't make sense. So programs like Vita Nova really make sense in the community to help provide that support. But at the same time, I challenge anybody to find an 18-year-old that's successful in all the areas that the average adult
They're still in
is.
high school. How could you
Absolutely.
take care of yourself when you still have to get to school? I
Yeah.
don't understand that. Well, you're doing a wonderful job in the community. If people want to get involved, how do they get involved? How do they reach Vita Nova?
I would call our main office line at 561-689-0035. You can ask for me, Jeff DeMario, and I'll be glad to help.
Okay, and do you have a website?
Yes, www.vitanovainc.org.
Well, Ann and Otto, thank you so much for joining us today and for sharing your stories with us. I want to thank all of you for spending time with us today. I'm Debra Tornabin. I look forward to seeing you next time. Thank you for joining us.